For decades, André Rieu, the one and only king of the waltz, has been more than just a musician. He's a full-blown global phenomenon. An unstoppable force of nature, he's swept across continents with his Stradivarius violin in hand, bringing
pure joy and spectacular shows to sold-out arenas from Amsterdam to Australia. His concerts aren't just concerts. They are grand celebrations of life and love, uniting millions of people who adore his enchanting music. He's a man who seems to defy time itself, a permanent fixture in the hearts of his fans. But recently, a sudden and shocking event in Mexico City sent a wave of concern through his worldwide fan base. An abrupt cancellation, rumors of a collapse, and a curtain that fell way too soon on what was supposed to be a triumphant tour. 40,000 fans were left stunned, holding tickets to shows that would never happen. And in the silence that followed, whispers began to spread. Whispers of a tragic decline, of a body pushed past its limits, of a career coming to a heartbreaking end. The rumors swelled, leaving millions asking the one question they'd never really considered before. Is this it for André Rieu? We're going to uncover the truth behind the headlines, look at the man behind the music, and reveal the surprising reality of what's next for the world's most beloved violinist. The excitement was electric. In March of 2024, after a 6-year break, André Rieu was finally back in Mexico City, a place where his music hits with a special kind of passion. He had 6 sold-out nights planned at the massive Auditorio Nacional, which tells you everything you need to know about his popularity there. The first 2 concerts were a smash hit. André, always the master showman, came, saw, and conquered, leaving over 20,000 fans completely mesmerized. He was in his element, a whirlwind of charisma and musical genius, looking as energetic as ever. But behind the big smiles and beautiful melodies, something else was going on. The grueling tour schedule, the long flights, and the physical challenge of performing at Mexico City's high altitude, over 7,300 feet above sea level, were all taking a serious toll. It wasn't just André. Members of his Johann Strauss orchestra were reportedly dealing with exhaustion and even nosebleeds from the thin air. For André, who was 74 at the time, the combination was just brutal. Then the news dropped. A short, devastating statement was released. The last 4 concerts were cancelled. Officially, the reason was an acute case of influenza with a fever. But reports from people close to the tour painted a much scarier picture. This wasn't just the flu. It was a collapse. It was a body that, after decades of non-stop performing, had finally said, no more. In his own words, André later said he felt like he was 100 years old. His son, Pierre, described the tough decision, saying his father's legs were shaking, and he was terrified he wouldn't be able to stay on his feet through a whole show. For a man who prides himself on his stamina, this was a deeply vulnerable moment. The fan reaction was immediate and intense. What started as disappointment from 40,000 ticket holders quickly turned into a massive outpouring of concern for the maestro's health. Social media and fan pages lit up with messages of love, support, and prayers. Suddenly, nobody was asking about a refund. They were asking about the health of a man who felt like family. This wasn't just a canceled tour. It was a stark reminder of his mortality, forcing fans to imagine a future without their king of the waltz. It was a shockwave that rippled around the world, leaving behind a lot of worry and unanswered questions. But this wasn't the first time. André's health has given his followers a major scare. The Mexico City incident was sudden, yes, but it was also an echo of a past crisis that almost silenced his violin for good. To really get how serious this was, you have to go back to 2010, a year that tested André Rieu like never before. He was in the middle of another huge world tour, a massive production set to hit the UK, Ireland, Australia, and New Zealand. The arenas were sold out, fans were waiting, but André's world was literally thrown off balance. He was hit with a severe viral infection of his vestibular nerve, the part of the inner ear that controls balance. For anyone, the vertigo that follows is completely debilitating. But for a violinist and conductor, a man whose entire art depends on posture, grace, and precision, it was a potential career ender. The world started spinning, and it just wouldn't stop. He had to do the unthinkable, cancel the rest of the tour. The financial fallout was massive. His entire company, the empire he'd built from the ground up, was suddenly on the verge of bankruptcy. The cost of refunding tickets, canceling venues, and supporting his huge orchestra without any money coming in was astronomical. It was a time of unbelievable stress, and he had to take desperate measures, including mortgaging his beloved home, a historic castle in Maastricht. The emotional toll was just as heavy. He was heartbroken to let his fans down. But more than that, he felt like a captain about to lose his ship, responsible for the livelihoods of the 100+ members of his orchestra and crew, who he famously calls his family. The recovery was slow. It took months of rest and rehab before he could even think about stepping back on stage. He had to relearn his sense of balance and learn to trust his body again. That 2010 crisis created the story that has followed him ever since. A man who gives everything to his music, pouring every ounce of himself into every show, sometimes at a great personal cost. It proved his incredible resilience, but it also exposed his vulnerability. He's often performed while sick, even with a high fever, just to avoid disappointing his audience. The years between these two health scares were packed with a relentless schedule that would wipe out a man half his age. We're talking up to 100 concerts a year, crisscrossing time zones, living out of a suitcase, all while keeping up the energy needed for his huge shows. The collapse in Mexico City then wasn't just a random illness. It was the result of years of pushing his body to the absolute limit. It was a clear reminder that even the most passionate artists are human, and the joyful spectacle we see on stage is often paid for with quiet, off-stage sacrifice. To really get André Rieu, you have to look at his past. To understand the fierce drive, the populist vision, and the deep need to fill the world with joy, you have to go back to his childhood in Maastricht, a home filled with music, but not a lot of warmth. Born in 1949, André grew up in a strict household run by his father, a respected but very stern conductor for the Maastricht Symphony Orchestra. The Rieu home was all about rigid discipline and Catholic values, where laughter was rare and emotions were kept buttoned up. It was less a loving home and more a musical boot camp. His father treated music with a kind of grim seriousness, an elitist art form meant for quiet halls and stuffy audiences. From the age of 5, André had a violin in his hands, and his future seemed mapped out. He was a gifted kid, but a quiet rebellion was already stirring. When he'd go to his father's concerts, he was amazed by the orchestra's power, but baffled by the gloomy atmosphere. Everybody looked so serious, he later remembered. You weren't supposed to cough or laugh, even though the music seemed to me to radiate so much joy. That observation became the guiding principle for his entire career. His relationship with his father was tense. André was drawn to more emotional, accessible music, especially the waltz, which his father thought was frivolous and beneath a serious musician. This created a huge rift between them. André wanted his father's approval, but he refused to betray his own musical instincts. That struggle lit a fire in him, a desire to prove that classical music could and should be for everyone. It was, around this time, he met the woman who would become his lifelong partner and the co-architect of his success, Marjorie Kochman. They married in 1975, and she has been his rock ever since. When André finally broke from his father's world and chose the waltz, it was a move his parents couldn't accept. In a telling sign of the emotional distance in his family, they never went to a single one of his concerts, not even when he was selling out arenas around the globe. His father passed away in 1992, having never witnessed the phenomenon his son would become. That rejection, as painful as it was, only strengthened André's resolve. With Marjorie by his side, he started building his own path. She wasn't just a supportive wife, she was a strategic partner. In the early days, she worked behind the scenes, helping build the company and get his music on TV when the classical establishment wanted nothing to do with him. He was the visionary, but she was the quiet force that made it all possible. This partnership, built on shared belief and deep love, laid the groundwork for everything that followed. The king of the waltz we see on stage wasn't built in a vacuum. He was forged by a difficult childhood and strengthened by an unbreakable bond with the woman who believed in his dream. The year 1987 was a major turning point. André Rieu, almost 40, was feeling restless. He'd been leading a smaller orchestra for years but dreamed of something bigger, something grander. He wanted to recreate the magic of the original waltz king, Johann Strauss himself. He didn't just want to play music, he wanted to create an experience. And so, with a vision in his heart and 12 loyal musicians, he founded the Johann Strauss Orchestra. Their very first concert was on New Year's Day, 1988. Right from the start, Rieu's approach was a radical break from the stuffy classical world his father happened inside the family business. A new figure started taking on a bigger role, stepping from behind the scenes to become a key pillar of the whole operation. André's youngest son, Pierre Rieu. Born in 1981, Pierre grew up completely immersed in his father's world of music and touring. After briefly studying law, he found his real calling inside the family company, starting from the bottom and learning every single part of the business. Over the years, he's become the vice president and general manager of André Rieu Productions, handling the massive logistical side of things that keeps the dream running. His father calls him an all-around genius and indispensable, and it's easy to see why. Pierre is the steady hand that manages the incredibly complex dance of international tour production, from transport and staging to finances and crew. He's the one who makes sure his father can walk on stage every night and focus only on what he does best, making music. This transition wasn't just good planning, it was born out of necessity and love. With every health scare, from the vertigo in 2010 to the collapse in Mexico in 2024, Pierre's role has become even more vital. He's become the protector of his father's health and the guardian of his legacy. After the Mexico incident, it was Pierre who spoke to the press, calmly explaining what happened and stressing that his father needed to rest. The message was clear. His number one job now is to make sure his father can keep performing his passion without risking his life to do it. There's a deep trust between father and son. While André is still the creative visionary, he's handed over huge parts of the operational control to Pierre, letting his son take the immense weight of the business off his shoulders. This partnership has allowed André to keep going at an age when most people would have long since retired. Pierre's role completely flips the script on the idea of a tragic decline. This isn't a story about a son taking over at the end. It's about a son stepping up to ensure there are many more concerts and much more music to come. He's not managing an ending. He's managing a sustainable future for the king of the waltz. In the aftermath of the Mexico City collapse, the rumor mill went into overdrive. Concerned whispers from fans quickly turned into sensational headlines and clickbait videos. The story they were selling was dramatic. André Rieu's terrifying collapse. Son takes over massive empire. Is this the end? The big question on everyone's mind was simple. Is André Rieu retiring? For his millions of devoted fans, the thought was heartbreaking. But for André himself, the idea of retirement has always been kind of a running joke. He's famously quipped that he plans to live to be 140 and will keep performing as long as he's able. While the health scares have forced him to admit he's human, his spirit is as defiant as ever. His son Pierre has been clear. They're learning from what happened in Mexico and being more careful, but his father is not retiring. However, his journey hasn't been without other offstage dramas. Back in 2015, Rieu faced a completely unexpected controversy. During his famous summer concerts in Maastricht, a group of young Romanian musicians performed on stage with pan-flute legend Gheorghe Zamfir. The performance was a huge hit, but it led to a massive fine from Dutch authorities for supposedly violating child labor laws by having minors on stage after the 11 p.m. curfew. It was a major headache. Rieu's team fought back hard, arguing the kids weren't his employees and had only come back on stage for a final bow, not to perform. The legal battle dragged on, but in the end, the court sided with André, dismissing the fine. It was another case of the maestro facing a huge obstacle and winning, but it added another layer to his public story. Amidst the public dramas and health scares, there's also a side to André Rieu you rarely see. A quiet generosity that's a world away from his flamboyant stage persona. After the devastating fire at Notre Dame Cathedral in Paris, André made a grand and public gesture. He offered 700 tons of steel from the massive stage set of his old Schönbrunn Palace tour to be used as scaffolding for the reconstruction. He has also made very real and impactful contributions closer to home. In 2019, he donated $425,000 to a youth culture fund in his home province of Limburg, a gift that provided music lessons for 1,000 children from families with little money. The reality of André Rieu is far more complex than the rumors. He's a man of incredible resilience, quiet generosity, and an iron will to keep sharing his gift with the world, no matter what gets in his way. So what's the surprising truth here? After the collapse, the cancellations, and all the rumors of retirement, what really happened to André Rieu? The truth is both simple and incredible. He got right back up. Far from disappearing into a quiet retirement, André Rieu has launched one of the most ambitious world tour schedules of his entire career, a joyful and defiant answer to anyone who thought he was done. The idea that he was planning a final concert in Maastricht was pure speculation. In reality, his official website tells a story of non-stop forward-moving energy. His concert calendar is packed with dates not just through the rest of 2025, but deep into 2026. The king of the waltz isn't giving up his throne. He's expanding his kingdom. The schedule is a breathtaking trip across the globe. He has performances lined up for Malta and the United Arab Emirates, plus a massive tour through Germany, hitting cities like Cologne, Frankfurt, and Berlin. He's bringing his show to Eastern Europe with dates in Romania, Austria, Slovakia, Croatia, and Hungary. In fact, demand was so high they had to add extra concerts in Sofia, Bulgaria. And of course, there are the homecoming concerts in the Netherlands and Belgium, plus shows in Spain, the UK, and beyond. His recent performances show zero signs of a man slowing down. His 2025 summer concerts in Maastricht were a massive success, drawing an estimated 150,000 people from over 100 countries. And yes, plans are already in the works for more in 2026. This isn't the schedule of a man winding down his career. This is the schedule of a global musical force, a man more dedicated than ever to his life's mission. The surprising truth is that the whispers of his career's end were completely wrong. The real story isn't about what happened to André Rieu. It's about what he's doing next. And what he's doing is exactly what he's always done, bringing his music to the world. André Rieu's journey is a powerful story of passion and persistence. His music has created